Hello and welcome back to the program. My name is Michael Finney. Today I am joined by Sherry McCracken and Chris Hackett. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having us today. I'm Sherry McCracken, and I'm a filmmaker and producer, indie film. And I've been in the Web3 arena since about 2018, and just recently dived into AI and how we can use AI to make films. And I'm happy to be here today.
Chris, you've been here before, but give us a follow-up.
Oh, yeah. I'm Chris Hackett, multidisciplinary artist and filmmaker, runner of contests, runner of spaces, purveyor of teams. I basically have just been in crypto for a while as a miner, and then I switched over when I didn't really see that was lucrative to, more of the art side. And then AI came along and kind of made that all easier. So here I am, a filmmaker turning more into an AI filmmaker every single day. And yeah, just really happy to be back. Thank you, sir.
So let's jump right into the project that we're all working on in terms of AI filmmaking, the shorts we've been doing. Where do you guys want to start with some of that, how it came about, maybe some of the trajectory that it's been on?
I think we could start with Nax. So Sherry, if you want to kind of explain where Nax came from, and then we can attach AI to it after that part of the story.
Sure. So a couple years ago, I was in the space. Like I said, I was over at Clubhouse and then came over to Twitter X, and really met a lot of filmmakers that were interested in doing things differently as far as making films and actually being able to get past gatekeepers and monetize our content. And so back in 2021, we had our first Film 3 Summit. We have a group called Film 3, a bunch of people here that really want to, like I said, make the changes, came together, and they were having the summit in LA. And I thought, hey, we're all going to be together. We all are creators, and let's make a film together. So we made our first short a couple years ago, and then last year we did it again in October. We made our second short. Our first short was called Dollyville, which we did with about 95% of the crew and team were part of Film 3. And then last year, I added some people, that had not really been in the blockchain crypto world to our mix. And we made a film together with about 80%, 85% female-driven horror film. And Chris just was part of our group, and from the beginning, he was part of the Genesis Nax team. He had actually done some AI art along with a guy named Sundog, who has since passed, and we miss him dearly. But they added art to help us raise money to make our film and do post. So that's how I met Chris, and just have been, growing our friendship together in this space since then. And so when season 3 came along for Nax, and I knew that Chris was doing a lot with AI, I thought, let's get together and, start doing some films and some, videos together and see how we can grow this space, because it is new and we're breaking ground and really being pioneers in this arena. There's so much that can be done with AI and film. And I think we're just starting to scratch the surface now. And Chris already, had all his relationships with the folks in the AI space, and was able to partner with Entertainment, who I had been, partnering with from the beginning with Nax. So he put a little program together, and we call it Nax AI. And that's we're co-partners in doing this next season, which is happening now.
Yeah. I mean, what had happened was I had seen what Sherry was doing with trying to make more community-based filmmaking, and including more people who maybe aren't filmmakers or who wanted to be filmmakers. And, I really saw this opportunity here for all of us to kind of see what we can do with AI, because what had kind of occurred to me through just following along with what was going on with Nax is that, like, I couldn't go out to locations. I couldn't do a lot of the things that I wanted to do on these shoots. But if we were trying to use a different method to make either concepts or other short films or things that would eventually make it to be sold, the easiest way to do that, besides just, independent community filmmaking, which I say easy and with big quotation marks, because there was none of those processes I heard that Sherry went through were easy. I came to the idea that maybe there's a better way that we could at least try this and at least get concepts done. And that was the start of an idea. And then Runway had this really interesting function of being able to manage a team on their platform. It wasn't cheap. It's $95 a person month to month, so it's not exactly the cheapest way to do something on a simple tool. But with those things in mind, wanting to make sure that Max got more of the ideas that Sherry had kind of put into place out to the world, and wanting to show that AI tools could do this, I approached a few people. Entertainment took us up on our offer and gave us 2 months of grant, gave us a 2-month grant for AI tools on Runway. And what was great is, I got to be able to bring on a few artists, and we had just finished the Cameras Up, Guns Down AI video open call. So I had a whole slew of artists that I could ask about this whole situation. And so out of the people that were on the list that I really liked their work and I wanted to work with more, I selected you, Michael. We selected Alana Wilcox and Neil, and we all just kind of got started. And the idea was to drive more narrative towards AI film. And what's great is right now, everyone is doing the same thing. Everyone is talking the same way that we're already running. So it's kind of been this thing of we're always in the right place at the right time with this type of project, and I hope that keeps happening. So yeah, that's how it started to where it's at right now.
Yeah, very cool. I would say, in response to some of those things, the development of the technology, the development of the community, and the development of the work very much is in tandem if you're paying attention to everything, right? Just in general, what I was able to do with Pika or Runway last year basically determined how far I could go with making a movie or making a film, or being able to build on the ideas that I had or the projects that I had available at that time. Now, 6 months later, what you can do is so much more and so much more dynamic in regards to narrative and storytelling, character building, dialogue, scene construction, all of those things. And I think this summer, people are really going to have a wealth of AI film to watch and enjoy and criticize all the same.
Sure. I mean, so this is the idea of why we came to this level, is that Sherry's a technologist and a producer, an indie producer. And, she looks at things from a perspective of, is this creatively something that could be sold in the more traditional way? And this is why I thought if I could at least convince not just entertainment, but her to be on this project, it would, and then not only that, to make it part of what Max does, partially, at least a leg of it next, that gives it more legs. Because if you look at Sherry's background, and anyone who wants to look up Sherry McCracken, definitely do so. It's a really, really beautiful life history, and what's online is really awesome to see that somebody has been able to do. And the thing is, if we could get somebody like her at least interested in how this could work, then there's a way that there's one other person that could say that to somebody else. And a lot of this is Hollywood is a very word of mouth type of place. It's everything gets by on word of mouth. And if you can get enough people talking positively about a process, you can get into rooms where they're just, where it's something that you're talking positively about and other people are. And it just gets you that much further. And every opportunity that we've been awarded because of that conversation has been because of Sherry's connections from the outside of, of where the world I'm in and the world I think a lot of the artists on this team are in. And I think that was the initial idea that was supposed to like push us off. And now we're seeing things like, remakes of movies that are, major things. And now we're also seeing networks pop up out of nowhere. Things like, Farcaster and Warpcast are starting to be, and Dracula app. They're starting to do these things where it's like, all right, there's more video out there. We need more ways of getting people rewarded for their work. And I think that factor is only picked up very recently, but it's something that I think is only going to keep going. And I also like that there's this idea that we don't devalue anyone's experience. The whole point of having different kinds of people on this project is to really bridge the gaps that nothing bridges. Hollywood doesn't bridge it. AI doesn't bridge it. Crypto doesn't bridge it. It all just kind of has their own communities. But I think all of us together, never being alone, never alone, it all kind of yields to this idea that, no matter what background you're from or what your understandings are, you can come into this authentically. And it'll feel very much the same if at first it doesn't, because at first you're like, oh, this doesn't look the same. These aren't this aren't that. But then you'll find things that you'll be like, oh, okay, now I get it. And then you start seeing it more and more and you start to understand how it works. Same way animation, computer graphics, everything kind of came along. It was with this like kind of idea that it's not what you're used to, but there's value here. There's artistic, creative, spiritual, personal. There's value here for more than just, one group of people. And I think that's where it's going to get really, really interesting is when we democratize these tools more so that more voices get to like tell their story. And it's kind of another reason why I wanted Sherry in this, because she comes from a background where she's known many stories to be told. And, it's something that I only know from, life, but, to have that understanding in more of a career sense is totally different. So, yeah, I think that it's only like the conversation has only yielded that the whole world is now talking in this direction. How it's going to go is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think that, Chris, you hit on some great points. And I think that, the future, and what I say is the future of film is community. And I really do believe in the creator economy and the fact that, we're going to do better work for less money by bringing people together with their ideas and sharing ideas. And that's what's been so great about this season 3 of NACS and doing the NACS AI is that we see firsthand that putting people collaborating together, creators collaborating and sharing information and helping each other learn, it's just been such a rewarding experience to watch this team support each other. You have a question, somebody else answers it. Somebody's used a tool that you haven't used. It's just been such a learning and growing opportunity, especially for me, because I've produced features and shorts and documentaries, but I've never really done anything with film and AI. And to watch this happen, and I'm learning along the way. I'm a good use case because I've got to learn these tools. Because to be a producer in the future, you're going to need to understand how these tools operate, how these teams, of people function together, just like you would putting together a budget, for a traditional movie. You need, and I reach out all the time to folks on the team and, Chris especially. And I'm like, well, how much would this take to do this? How much would this, cost to do something like this? And learning all those tools is going to be so important for producers and any filmmakers in the future. There's so many different ways that we can be using AI, just not for, a generative video, but, for a planning. pre-production, helping to get an idea off the ground, writing scripts, helping to write a script. I truly believe that everything good starts with a good story. So it doesn't mean that AI should write our story, because I don't believe that AI, at least now, has the emotions of humans. I don't think it's going to take the place of that. But boy, do we have a lot of opportunity to bring costs down for making films, to make it a lot more accessible to the average person who wants to be a creator, who wants to be a storyteller, to be able to, use these tools to make things and tell stories for a lot less money. And that's the big reason that I'm in this now, because there are stories that need to be told, that should be told, and people can't afford to do them. And they can't get past gatekeepers once they even make these films to actually get it out there to the public. So we have this amazing opportunity in creator economy to change all this and change the model for how, these stories get told and seen.
What is maybe one of the most interesting pieces of tooling or technology that you have seen that you weren't familiar with so far, Sherry?
Well, I think it's any of the tools that allow for this, generative, videos or film. I'm just watching how they're growing, and to see how we can have this character consistency. So I think that's huge, right? Being able to take a character, and that character can be the same face, the same look throughout the entire film. That's just starting to happen now. It still, for me, looks very clunky. The voiceover possibilities, getting the voice into the characters, huge. Again, we have a long way to go, but learning these tools now and seeing what they're capable of, and having this team of people to say, somebody finds a tool, they share it with the rest of the team. Oh, does that tool work? I mean, it's changing every day. What do we do to get to be better storytellers, to be more cinematic, to be more narrative, as Chris was saying earlier? That's where, that's what I'm excited about. Those are the changes I'm seeing. I've only really had experience, or, have seen Runway, because that's what we're working with. Of course, I've seen other people use Midjourney and so forth, but just trying to understand what these different tools bring to the table. And that's where, with Chris, he has that overall picture of how to put all this software together, like which software is best at doing what we need to do. What software is best for, voiceover, which software is best for visual, for editing, for camera moves, all those different things that we do physically now that we can now do with AI. I think, I'm just learning every day. For me, it's super exciting.
That's a thing too. When you talk about the state of the art in generative AI, it's really a snapshot of any given day because of the rapidity of development.
I think, and also I'd kind of like to hear how Sherry feels about this too, is like the one thing that I thought was really cool that I didn't expect. And it was not so much a reaction of like a tool that I used, but it's interesting how many people actually can attach themselves to the deform look, which not a lot of people really understand what that means. But then when you see the animation, you're like, oh yeah, I get it. And so like, and Sherry, if you want to like kind of talk on this, it'd be interesting. But Frog's Lament and the other thing that we're working on with Alana right now with the threads and stuff. Like, what about that like really drew you in? What was about that visual that got to you? Because for me, it's nostalgia because I was using those tools when they started. But you coming into this kind of new, I had always meant to ask, but I never did. Like, what drew you in is with that like aesthetic? Like, what was the thing?
I guess it's sort of like a personal preference, like what styles you like. I think I was thinking about this the other day. There's a song, and Chris will know it. "Take on Me." Do you remember that video?
By Aha.
Yeah, aha. Yeah, that's what it kind of reminds me of. That kind of almost raw, different kind of aesthetic that that for me just kind of pulls me in because it feels emotional to me. And I'm really drawn to, because I'm a storyteller, the emotions and things. So far, a lot I've seen in AI is it can feel a little bit robotic. Okay, this worked, then that worked, then move on to this kind of thing. Whereas with what Alana was working on with Frog's Lament, which was in the first contest that Chris was speaking about, Cameras Up, Guns Down, it really just felt like I could feel it. Does that make sense, Chris? Like I could feel the emotion in it.
Okay, no, that is. And it's funny that Take On Me is that animation style, that really like lo-fi animation style, I think is really where a lot of people attach to, because it was one of the biggest examples, but there's so many that are like it. And it's it's one of those things like, if somebody doesn't like AI, you don't even tell them something like this is AI, and they probably still just go with it, And that's what's kind of cool, is that's another lens that I really wanted to put on this project, was having somebody who doesn't have that nostalgia background on the tool itself, but has that visual love for it. I think that's another way to like bridge gaps between groups of people in many different ways, many different backgrounds.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't even know until like 2 days ago that the software was called the Forum. So it was like, that's what I mean. It's just a whole learning opportunity here. And in a way, it's a little scary if people actually honestly know what it takes to do a video in the way that's going to be, needed for the future. Because now, like I said, everything's new and it's exciting. But a year from now, it's going to be like, who knows how to use these tools to get the look that I'm hoping for and the story that I'm trying to tell, and be able to do that using these tools. That's going to bring. That's going to be what humans bring to the table, right? We're having a lot of fun now, but what's going to separate the men from the boys? I hate to use that because that's so old school, but that's what we mean by what's happening now, and then how will people make money doing this in the future? And why will people care? Why do they want to look at this video for more than 10 seconds? These are the changes I think we're going to start seeing as people learn these tools. And I was asking Michael, earlier today, how long did it take him to do the piece that he just released? And he said that it took 8 hours a day. And I said, but how many days? He's like, 2 weeks. Most people would never realize that's what it takes to do a piece like Tatara right now. And that's what they're just getting the story, which is the important part. That's what we should get, right? It's a good story. It's a great look. It's engaging. But is that something, that's going to stand the test of time? Because, a year from now, it's going to look like, oh, that was easy, when it's not. And that's what we all, I think, need to be communicating right now. This isn't easy. AI art isn't just like pushing a button and it's done and a machine did it. No, it's a lot more than that when you're storytelling.
And to be fair, I was probably I was underestimating some of those days. Mm-hmm. Just because, Chris knows when we were up pretty late on some of those days. And when I would push an export and it'd be like 1 a.m., I mean, that wasn't an 8-hour day by any means. But, the thing about when you're working on those things is that you don't really necessarily dial into the amount of time. You kind of just dial into the craft of it. And unfortunately, the hours melt away. And yes, I would say the first half of working on that was a lot of experimentation and learning. And the second half of working on that project, like say after we got lip sync, as soon as I got lip sync and I knew that I could do all those things right within that, within the tool that we'd been using, Runway, it not only elevated the story crafting, the storytelling that was going on there, but really designed some of the scenes and flows between the scenes that I wanted to try for, because I wasn't necessarily sure what I could or would do and I had thought maybe I'm going to have to turn over to Pika here because they had already launched lip sync. But as soon as I got that, it basically was like, okay, now that I've seen a little bit of dabbling around with this and understand what it's capable of, I ripped on that thing for like 4 days straight, getting through the lip sync, all the dialogue scenes.
Yeah, it's the difference here, and I've said this to a couple of different people, is that with traditional filmmaking, you're trying stuff out on set with the limited amount of tools you have. You have your set, you have whatever movement equipment you have that you brought, that you had your package, your DP package with, all the stuff that you have that is part of your day. And there's sometimes where, you get ahead of a couple of shots, or, a whole bulk of shots don't work because of something or other, and you have to kind of throw out the plan and try something different. And I think where AI comes into play is that if you are using it to send product, like to finalize product of any sort, whether it's, feature, short, whatever, you have that play any time in the process, which could be dangerous and as well reassuring. Because where it's dangerous is like you could get to the very end of a project, like this is my big danger. You get to the very end of a project's completely done, but you see something that doesn't feel right from the very beginning, and if you change it, you have to change a whole bunch of other stuff, and there's the temptation there to do it, to just make it that much better. And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes. Most times it just has you going down another entire rabbit hole, because then other shots don't work the same way, because the movement doesn't work, and this. And these are all, like, at this point, Stone Age problems compared to where AI is going to be 6 months from now. But 6 months ago, you couldn't even get faces. No, you could get faces. You could get faces and hands. A year ago, you couldn't get faces and hands. Like, it wasn't that easy. It was difficult. And so I think that's where, the playing now is getting a little less playing, because now you're able to, like, really do things in more dependable ways. But I think that's the real difference, is that you're playing on set in traditional film. In this, you're playing on set, in post, during writing, like, all at the same time. All your production phases pretty much happening at once.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, because that's very much what was going on with the last piece that I put together, where I had all of the scenes maybe produced in terms of the video, but I didn't have the narration set all the way. Basically I wrote the last 4 sentences of narration. That was like the last thing that happened. But also was beginning to score it before editing was finished, before narration was totally finished. Yeah, and it's a cool non-linear way of crafting stories, making movies, I think.
And it's really a luxury, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you're on set, you're trying to make your day. You don't have time to play. You have it baked before you go in. Maybe there's some changes you can make in performance, some of the dialogue, so forth. But everything else is pretty much baked. And look, we got to go. We got to move. Moving on to the next scene. Whereas with AI, from what I've seen, at least with the projects we're doing now, you have more of that play time, more of that learning time. It's going to be interesting to see, and I think about it daily, what the role will be of a producer for these projects. Because will there be, I always think there's a need for a producer in bigger projects, because somebody has to, be responsible, steer the ship, make the deadlines. Interested in hearing what you guys think about that position and how you see it fitting into more of AI generated films.
Well, I for sure, it's one of those things that you don't know you need till you need it. That's 100%. And there's a lot of people I know who are filmmakers who would wholeheartedly agree with me. When you're starting out, you don't really understand why you would need a producer. And then, you finally get one, or you work with one, or you work on a big enough production that has one. And then you start realizing why you need a producer. And there's a lot to say. And this goes technicians, artists, all the different people, like all of us, like we were just talking, like me and Michael are probably in this bracket where if we didn't have a first AD, and if that first AD didn't have a producer on set, like we camera people would just play all day. Like we would try out all these different lenses, try all these different things. If we had stuff to do, we'd just do it, and just let time, be time abound. We just didn't care. But you need somebody whose eye is on that ball. Like that's a real purpose. I think where it's going to change is that you won't have necessarily producers who have a very light animation background and have a really heavy like shot footage type of background. I think what'll happen is there's going to be an even more gray blending, where it's going to be, you're going to have stuff like you'll probably have produced, as anyone who's going to be a producer coming up will probably have produced a couple of AI music videos, at the very least, kind of a cut your teeth type of situation, or AI commercials, because those are going to get really easy. Especially as time goes on, it's getting easier every day. And I think that part of the business will grow. Like there'll be more producers in that pool, because you won't necessarily have to be somebody who only does one or the other. It's like, well, I like live action, but I really like the turnover, speed, and dependability of AI. So maybe I could play in both. And then XR and stuff like that, like the virtual stages and stuff. I think there's going to be a lot more producers who are going to get very comfortable in that environment, just because it'll be much easier to take a star, put them on a virtual, and have a generated background or a generated scene, and then just run off of that. They practically do it now anyway. So I think that's where it'll change, is that there's going to be less of a need for a producer. It's just the producer will be much more multifaceted than the ones I've met in the time I've done film.
Yeah, I would say having a producer that is either familiar with the style or familiar with the technology is great. But more importantly than that is somebody who kind of wrangles a team. For us right now, we've, up until the last week, we've basically been siloed working on our pieces. Now we're getting a little more collaborative and having to actually focus on team development, in the sense of like the team is developing the work together, not so much developing the rapport of the team. But inside of that kind of petri dish of ideas and skills, having somebody that's kind of overviewing that, and then also managing relationships beyond this collective, that's to me where a producer shines and is of high value.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think it is something that's going to change and grow. It's going to be more of a fluid position, for the next couple of years, especially on AI-driven projects. Do you think that, I don't want to become I didn't mean to take over the interview, Michael. I just had some questions.
No, this is not an interview. This is a conversation, so it's perfectly fine.
A conversation. Okay. I like that better. So I'm just wondering, with, us moving forward and more things being AI generated, do you see some of the creativity going away for the artist as this becomes more of a mainstream piece of, doing the work?
No, I don't think so. To dial back into some of the things that you were talking about before, in terms of like, well, what we're doing right now, we talk about deforum and the style of that. It's funny to say, like, something that has been, only around for a year and a half, we might begin even now to have some semblance of nostalgia for that look. There will always be new technologies or new ways of combining these tools to achieve a vision for creatives, for artists. So I think they're always going to be looking to bend the capabilities of that and to say new things with them. So I don't think that creativity is ever really going to go away for people that are creative. I just don't, I don't believe that. Though I would say that as maybe the tools become more formalized and more accepted within established communities or commercial work, enterprise level work, um, that you are going to be expected to be able to fit into particular workflows and reporting and other kind of communication tools in that way. But that, again, those organizations and those institutions are always looking for people that have a creative eye or have an interesting way of saying things. And you have to allow those people to be able to get their hands dirty and play around with everything, because that's how they develop the next new look or the next trends. And you want them to be doing that.
Yeah. So in crypto, and especially in AI art, what we've seen recently, and I think this is going definitely to happen in film, is we've seen collectors become artists, and then they become this like new thing that didn't really exist before. But what's interesting about it is that the democratization of the tools. It used to be something like, if you knew a producer that also was a director, most of the time, no one really, as far as the people I knew, no one really they used to just choose people to work with. They'd get somebody to give them the money and then they'd go and make the thing. And, since they were producer and director, it was kind of a close shop. It was like whoever you knew or whatever that person knew or whatever contacts that person had. But, everybody else would kind of, especially, the trades, would balk at this because it's like, oh, you're crossing too many boundaries. You can't be my boss and somebody that has to listen to me. There's this whole problem with it. And the same thing happens with collectors who become artists. Then people are starting to tell them, well, you're not a collector and you're not an artist. You're a trader. You're this, you're that. They have all these terms for it. But the conversation, I think, yields some interest only because what'll be cool is I am on the docket to teach Sherry some tools and to teach her Pika Labs and stuff like that, because its entry is rather easy. And it's one of those things where I would love to hear a year or so from now that Sherry's on a set and there's a problem that came up, or she was trying to explain something she wanted creatively out of something, and for her to just take a screenshot, a frame, just take a picture of what was the last shot that they did. And she just knows from having tested the tools that there's a way to do this in Pika where she's able to show what she wants done. And to be able to just do it on her phone and then show somebody see, this is the shot I want. This is the kind of movement I think would get the best out of this.
Yeah.
And whether it's as a producer, as a creative person on set, it doesn't matter. For that to happen would be huge for me, being a cinematographer, for somebody to just go, because we've done this on set where it's somebody tries to draw it out in stick figures, what they're thinking, and you don't really get it, but you kind of get it between the two of you. To have that kind of visual representation, that 4 seconds, just be like, oh, that's what you want? Cool. I could do that. That's what I'm excited for. That's the thing that I think is going to be huge for people in that position to learn. And also just huge for anybody that's working with that person to be like, thank you. This is great. I can now make this work.
You nailed it, Chris, because, I look at myself as I'm a creator first. That's what I like to do. But, it was necessity that I became a producer because, these were my projects and somebody has to be responsible, for the budget and getting things done on time and hiring the people and all that stuff. And, I had that skill set from working in corporate pharma. Please don't hold that against me. And, being a technologist and, I have all these pieces of running product launches. But at the same time, what I really enjoy doing the most is creating, and I've been a professional photographer my whole life. I've been a filmmaker for 15 years. And I've created a series. I've done different things that I want to do, but I am not a writer. I'm a cinematographer. I can bring that to the table. So what I do, like you were saying, Chris, is I'll show somebody a frame. I'll take a still and I'll say, this is the frame. This is how I want it to look. This is what I'm thinking. And you're right, you can take next level with AI. You can really like show colors that you want, and you can show characters that you want, and the look and feel of everything when doing your lookbook, or just like you said, showing somebody right on set, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. It's a lot easier to do it visually than it is just talking about it. So I love that, and I can't wait to learn.
Yeah. And I also think about like what you went through with Sins just recently. Imagine being able to tell the director and the cinematographer, like if you guys are not agreeing on a certain shot, and just being able to like take the shot, not even from the camera, do it yourself, just take the shot and just kind of just show how it would work, just even in like light blocking, how it would work. And, there will be personalities who will hate this. But I think there will also be people like myself, like I think Michael is, and I like Michael doesn't have set time. But I think when he does, because I really do feel like he should, or he will at some point. But it's like one of those things when you have set time and somebody is able to just cut out time of like that it's that period in between playing and trying. That where it's not fun anymore. You're working on something to try and get that visual, but you don't know what the visual is, so you have to do a lot of playing in order to get the work. Like I think that's where it's going to be so massive, and so many people that really appreciate getting the work done are going to love that. It's because that's what it's about. It's not about who has the best idea, who's going to be the one at the top, who's going to be the most recognized. It's about getting that piece out there to people and to have them like consume it in their way. And I think tools like what we're playing with, and somebody who's in both of those worlds, like I want Sherry to be in, I think that's going to be where it's going to be game changing for a lot of different people in so many different ways. Because a young person coming into this and knowing all the things about AI and still afraid to talk about it on set would meet somebody like Sherry, who's like, hey, I did this thing with Pika, and they're like, what? You know what Pika is? And now not only did you just kind of help somebody figure out something you wanted them to do with the project you're on, but you now have started a kinship there that is different from anyone who else on set who's like, no, that's terrible. It's a tool. It's going to destroy us all. It's going to take all of our jobs and everything, which is not something I believe it's going to be able to do, because there's still something there in film that is not an AI. And I don't think no matter how many technological advancements we get, we're going to get to that point beyond film. It seems like we'll get to the door, right at the door, kind of like how CGI is. Like we'll get right there where we're very close, but it's not exactly the same. And I think that's why, that's that fear of whatever that could be, whatever it's, it's going to take this or it's going to do that. If it could be dispelled by people who understand the tech better and who have some experience. They don't have to be experts, but some experience in understanding what it could do. And I think that'll be even more valuable because it'll dispel fear. Somebody calm on set talking about AI is going to be way better than a bunch of people freaking out about it. Like there's so many valids to that.
So just in general, my eyes still appreciate the practical effects, the looks of the way films were in the 70s and 80s, things that were going on there with sci-fi and fantasy. I still really like the way that stuff looks, even into the early 90s. Obviously, Jurassic Park still looks fantastic.
Yes.
And that's not to take away anything from the stuff that's going on now. It's just what I like. It feels very organic and it feels very natural on screen. And it feels like the people are actually interacting with those sets and those characters, even when they are fake. Deep lore moment here. I did actually take television production in college and did a little bit of that stuff and have produced a few episodes of some television shows that we were doing.
Always surprising, maybe different stuff that you do, and now that kind of makes sense on your discipline on certain things.
So let me ask you guys here: are there any points that we haven't addressed, or that you feel need to be said, or that you want to say before we wrap things up for today?
Well, I feel like I could talk about this, forever. We need hours and hours because, like I said, I'm learning something every day, and how to apply these new technologies. But most of all, I think what I want to really tell everyone is that working together and sharing, leaving ego outside of the room. I think can be really hard for artists and others. And I think the difference with like the way that we're working now or trying to show that this model can work is that everybody's important. Everybody has an important role in making a film. And we can't do it without all these different people with all their different experiences and talents really coming together. And I think with AI and with NACS, what we're doing right now is going to prove how that can work and how that can be better. So, never alone experience is what NACS stands for. And I think every day that we continue showing how we can support each other is going to be a better day for creators, because I think in the long run, this is how we can really make money doing what we love to do. And we're not going to do it alone. We're going to do it together. And I'm just looking forward to the next season. Well, this season, we've got a long way to go with this season, but also the next thing we do, which is really making a film together and, bringing even more people to contribute to this process and getting the word out there about how we can support each other and how we can learn together and how, again, that we can make money, because that's why I came into this space, is to see how we can monetize our content, to make money, to be able to feed ourselves, to be able to feed our family, doing what we love to do and lifting up people with marginalized voices. This is the way we're going to be able to do this. It's not going to take, a couple 100,000, millions to make the movies that are out there now. We have audiences out there that want these real stories that they can relate to, that we can do now because we can afford to do it. We don't have to buy an Ari Alexa. That's great. I'd love to have one. I love having them on my features. But there's other ways to do this now where it's affordable for people that couldn't do this before. And that's why I'm so jazzed about this right now and want to just continue pushing this forward. AI to me is a good word or a good acronym, and we need to spread the word that the good things that can be done with AI outweigh the bad, just like any technology. So that's my kind of takeaway for today.
Solid. Yeah. I mean, like Sherry, I could go on about this for hours. I do every Thursday if anyone wants to come and listen. 12 Eastern on X. We talk about this stuff for hours, 2 hours every Thursday. Now, the thing about it, the thing that I'm trying like as hard as I can to put this in a very tight contextual way, and it's that there's nothing about AI to me that shows that it's going to take anything away from any creator. But kind of like what Sherry just said, the powers that be are going to use this technology as a scapegoat to say that they can't do this or they can't do that or they won't do this or they won't do that. And the other reason why I wanted to prove this model with somebody like Sherry is to go, yeah, but we can. Where somebody with power will say we can't do this because it could just be done easier with AI, and not put up any alternate as to how to accomplish this film or this goal. It'll be something like NACS. It'll be something like Sherry's other projects, like all the other stuff that Sherry's part of. That it'll be like, yeah, okay, well, we can do that. We know people who will pay for it. We understand how that market works, and we will make that happen for this. And it may not be the same money that has existed previously, but at least at the end of it, you'll have worked with somebody who understands that whole process and is more than willing to help you do it. because they understand that if you did get an Arri Alexa, or if Panavision gives you a grant to use some of their cameras and their gear, that if you don't get a shot in while you're in production, there's a way to do it with AI. There's a way to help it with AI. There's a way to have AI just support that film that much better. And I think that the fear and the mongering and all that is not about people losing their jobs because no one wants to watch movies anymore. I think it's more the fear of losing their jobs because the studios are just not going to pay out anymore, which was something that was happening before AI was even a thought or a threat of any sort. It was something that was going to happen if it wasn't AI, if it was some other technology that came along and just did this. So this is why I say to all creators, do not listen to the media narrative from people who are just saying AI is going to do this thing to film that you don't like. Because if you like film a certain way, there's a world for you in that world. If you don't like AI at all, you want it completely out of your film entirely, there's a world for you. There are people still shooting on regular emulsion film on 70 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and 16 millimeter. Hasn't been common for a really long time, but it is still there. And it's the reason why is that aesthetic is what they want, is what they get out of it. And that's not going to change. If anything, that's going to get stronger. What I see coming, and the thing I really, really want to drive home for anyone who hears this, if you're an artist and there's a certain thing, a certain aesthetic, a certain thing you like, double, triple, quadruple down on it. Don't think about, what technology is coming out. It's going to be useless. Why am I going to make a 16 millimeter black and white feature, in this day and age, when there's AI coming? Don't do that as if they're two different things. Make it come together in some way, shape, or form. If a studio executive is saying they cancel an $800 million project, or at least put it on hold for an $800 million project because of AI, just understand that if they don't integrate that into that project, that they're the dumb ones, not you for, being scared. You can be scared because that's what they're trying to do to you. But you are a person who understands. And the future of what the distribution model will be, the creator economy that Sherry talked about earlier, that future is close at hand, and it doesn't look like something that Hollywood is traditionally known for, but it does look like something that artists are known for, and that is getting down and dirty into the depths and finding their audience and giving them what they want. And this is something that's existed in art for centuries, and it will always exist in art, where however it is that you like to do what you do, there is going to be a place for you to do it. And if you find the people who like it, that's the ones you attach to. If you can't find anyone to finance it, find people who like it. They'll help you get there. Just see what they're willing to pay. If somebody's, if there's people who are willing to go see a movie 4 or 5 times because they really like the story, they really like the idea, and you give them the same thing, you give them equal visuals and everything to that effect, they will come and see you. There's nothing different. That line between what Hollywood has and what you have is all money. And it's all money because that's what it takes to do certain things. What's coming is that it'll take far less money to do those things. And you as a creator just attach on to wherever's going to pay you out to do what you do best. Because that's the truth. It's like whatever you do best, you should be compensated for. And that's really why, Sherry's ethos about getting paid for your content, about doing work and actually making money for it. This is something that aligns maybe with stuff that she hasn't seen and I haven't seen, and maybe out there we're waiting for it to happen, or it's coming up from things we are seeing and maybe we'll just be that much stronger. But that is really what it comes down to. Almost every film that's ever been made has never been off of the idea of how great the advertising was if the advertiser didn't have somebody going and tweaking an idea even further. So an artist still has to come in, even in the advertising, and make that amp that much higher. So yeah, once again, I should stop myself only because I could go even further. But yeah, I want to drive home, be the artist, make the stuff, enjoy the work. Like that's the key.
Very good. Well, Chris, Sherry, thank you for joining me today, and we'll talk again before too long.
Thank you for having us. It was awesome.
Yep.
Talk to you soon.